Yeah. Anyways, so, this lawyer went before the 9 justices. I think Scalia was still alive. Yeah. And so he had asked the justices to allow this one man, his client, to be able to do the trial. And the justices had mentioned that they can't, because they can't just rule for the benefit of one single person. It has to be a bunch of people. And so what this lawyer said near the end of his speech was that if I was able to go inside my client and to yank out this disease, Alzheimer's, I would, but I can't. Sometimes when I get students who, ask a lot of good questions, come to class often, they just have a certain presence to them, as most of you in this class, if not all of you do. But sometimes you ask silly questions or you just say silly things. And like this lawyer before the Supreme Court, I sometimes fantasize about somehow getting inside your head, and just taking this disease called stupidity out and crashing it. But it's not possible. I understand that people have to go through their own journey, hopefully to learn from all the mistakes that they make, have enough tools and courage to recover from all the mistakes and make their lives better. But, people make a lot of mistakes, usually in life. They just don't have the tools. They don't have the tools that help them to be aware enough to see those mistakes. They don't have the courage to live with the pain of the mistake, and they don't have a support system to correct it. So time just passes and passes and passes, and before you know it, you're my age, 60, in this case, 90. And all you have is, you can just go back in time in your memory and realize all the things that you could have done, but you didn't. And now it's, now what you have is wisdom at the age of 80 or 60. The only problem is there is nowhere to go to sell them. Wisdom usually lives alone. So, I will tell you the story that comes from this book called the Urantia book. Assalamu alaikum. You guys know this book, Urantia? It's about, 9,000 pages, minus 6. It's about the lost years of Jesus Christ. It doesn't have to be true, but it's just a good book. Lots of interesting stories. I read this book about, 30 years ago. I've forgotten most of it because it's nonsense. But as books go, there is this passage where this man goes to Jesus and says, there's a good student there. He seems to be ready for your wisdom. And he says, no, the only way that he could truly be ready for wisdom, what I have to offer him, he needs to come and live with me. Which is a really strange thing. When you occupy a space, after a while it just grows on you, and it's very difficult for you to leave that space. And everything that happens in that space becomes part of you. It's like when you, sometimes, not all the time, but when you see, for example, your mom yelling at your dad all the time, or vice versa, or your sisters or your brothers not paying attention to you, you kind of consume that particular attitude. So when you go into life and you have your own friends and companions, that's how you treat them. So you become part of the space. And one of the nice things about the saying in this book by Jesus is that change really happens if you're able, first of all, to find someone who has magnetism, charisma, above all, wisdom. And I don't really know what that means. I don't know how it's recognized, but nevertheless, and it's good to be inspired by wisdom or by someone, but to truly be changed, you have to go and live with the person. And you could do that in a couple of ways. You can, let's just say, for example, you like this class, you feel as if it benefits you in some shape or form. Before COVID, I used to be on campus from 5 in the morning almost till 6 or 7 at night. And so I had students who would come to the office from like 6:30 in the morning and all the way to like 6 or 7 at night. And they would just sit in all my classes. So that's the physical aspect of living with someone, that you just go wherever they are. And once you have occupied enough physical space, what happens is what the other person offered you for 5, 6, 7 months or years now live inside you. It doesn't matter where you go, it doesn't matter what you do, it doesn't matter what crimes you commit against yourself or humanity or God. There are going to be moments where that person will just come out of you and speak to you. It's just part of you, you know. So that's how change happens. But all that aside, for those of you who haven't done much work for this class, you should really come and see me. And no more than maybe a couple of minutes, because I can't, stand too much of people in my space. Yeah, come talk to me. Make sure you have like some goods with you. And well, I'm from the Middle East, so we can bargain. Yeah. Okay, so what do you guys want to talk about? It could be anything. Yeah.
You talk about the role of the shaman.
Okay. So he wants to talk about magicians. All right, well, yeah, Peter? Optimism and pessimism. Excellent. Anyone else? Meditation. Okay. Real poverty in this class today. What does it mean to be a magician? Of course. Optimism, pessimism, meditation. Excellent, yeah. Such a liar. But that's fine. All right, let's talk about optimism, pessimism first. And then we'll talk about not so much how a magician functions, but how one becomes a magician. And then we'll connect that to meditation. Yeah.
I asked this question before, but I don't know. Can you talk about why people lie?
Why people lie. And of course, we'll talk about why people lie. Let me first tell you a story that comes from the Sufi tradition about optimism and pessimism. And for those of you who may not know what Sufism is, it's this magical branch that comes out of Islam. It's the realm of the mystics, the spirituals, those who enjoy being around spiritual fire and being baptized by spiritual fire, I suppose. They don't read to learn, they read to feel. They're not after knowledge, they're after experience. And once they have had the experience, they acquire knowledge to express eloquently what they have experienced. So before we talk about what pessimism and optimism is, you need to know that there are certain people on the inside. They are wired at the moment of birth. The moment a child is born, they're just wired by God, by nature, biology, who the hell knows? They look at their mom and their dad and said, yuck, Why'd they bring me here? What's wrong with these people? You know, life is such a sad event. Didn't these people know what they were doing? Couldn't, like, my father wear a condom? Couldn't my mom be on birth control? Why'd they give birth to me? What's wrong with them? So some people, at the moment of birth, they are what we call introverts. Introverts are funny people. They are never happy. I don't know why. They're like a Jesus Christ. You know, they got a good mom. It's not enough. They got a good dad. It's not enough. You know, your father is like a carpenter and he gives you his shop. It's not enough. You know, you have everything. It's just not enough. And introverts happen to what we usually call, they happen to be suffering from having lost a lover. But the lover doesn't really exist on the outside. It exists on the inside. You know, there is this great story that was told to us by Rumi. It's about this man who had seen this woman for no more than 5 or 10 minutes or 10 days or 10 weeks or 10 years, and he falls madly in love with her. And they had to part ways like Layli Majnun or Romeo and Juliet, and this man decides to write this woman a letter every single day, and he does. Like, he lives in Oakland and she lives in Sacramento. Money is tight. There is no transportation. So the only thing really he can do, and there is no FaceTime, of course, because there are no cell phones. The only thing he can do is just write letters and just send the letter her way. And man, these letters are most passionate. They're beautiful. And every time this woman reads these letters, you know, the letters, and she sees that this man has wept a little, the teardrops are on this paper. And she's intensely moved. Then one day, he FaceTimes her and says, I saved some money, I'm going to get on Amtrak or Greyhound, and I'm going to come and visit you. And the woman is very, very, very excited. And she showers, she cleans the house, you know, cooks this beautiful dish. And the man arrives, looks at her and says, you know, I'm not feeling it. What do you mean you're not feeling it? When I write you letters, there is so much love and passion inside me. But now that I see you in person, I don't have enough passion or interest in you. I don't know why. And the woman looks at this man and says, you need to get your ass back to Oakland because you are much more interested in the way you feel than in me. And that's what introverts are. They have intense emotions and intense feelings, and though they may enjoy reading Plato, though they may enjoy sitting back and watching a great movie played by Al Pacino, for example, though they may enjoy coming to class and talking or listening to philosophy, the truth is they're not interested in philosophy. They're not interested in the movie. They're interested in how the conversation makes them feel. They're profoundly self-centered. So why does one become a pessimist? The organic kind is you're just born and you look at, you know, you go outside, you go for a walk. There is not a single cloud in the sky. But you're hanging out with your friends and you look at them and say, why is it raining? And your friends look up and say, rain? What rain? What are you talking about? It's just sun, no clouds. No, it's raining. In other words, what he's saying is, it may be light out there, but all I see is darkness. The flip side is those who are not introverts. They are extroverts. They can actually look out there and find things that are interesting. You know, they are promised through a set of advertisement that if they go to school, if they do A, B, C, D, they'll be successful. All they have to do is to assimilate, to conform, and they do so, and they're relatively happy. And they're just born to be positive. My father, if bullets come from the sky non-stop, he says, oh, it's beautiful. You know, In every moment, he finds it as a teaching experience. And I don't know how these people function. I don't know how they work. My father is 90. He goes to the car wash is broke, stays there for like 5 hours. He's 90, climbs the ladders. And, opening and closing these machines are tough on the human body. And I call him like at 5 or 6 in the afternoon or evening. He says, Dad, what's going on? Oh, things are fine. Beautiful. Okay. My mom picks up the phone. Did you hear? Heard what? Your dad was at the car wash for 10 hours. Really? Let me talk to him. Dad, what happened? Oh, I was on vacation. Vacation? What do you mean vacation? Yeah, I went there and this was broke and that was broke. So how are you feeling now? Oh, you know how life is. When life gives you lemons, what do? Well, you look at them. You make Kool-Aid and you drink and you die. So now what the problem sometimes happens is that the following. So you're an introvert. You always see the cup as half empty. You hang around with the optimist, the positive, who see the cup as half full. And your friends and most people really are not so much optimists, but they don't like to be sad all the time and gloomy. They try to make you feel bad. Why do you keep saying that the cup is half empty? Once, for God's sake, just say it's half full. So your friends, your community, your parents always try to make you feel bad. Because that really, in essence, is who you are. You are an introvert, and as an introvert, you see yourself as a profoundly sucky human being, and you find society to suck, you find life to suck, that there is something great about life, but for some strange reason, it's never given to you. And everything about your life seems to be good, but you're just so miserable. And so what you realize is that other people are pushing you to be something that you're not. God made you a pessimist, but your surrounding is strong to push you into being an optimist, and you try, but you fail. I mean, you can fake it a few times, So that's one way of looking at optimists and pessimists. The other is a more scientific version, which is the following. For those of you in this class who know a thing or two about the Jewish tradition or Judaism, it's a funny story. It's a funny people. It's a funny culture in the sense that perhaps it's been the only group in human history that have been pushed around so much and so often throughout history. They go to Oakland, they get kicked out. They go to Palestine, they get kicked out. They go to Germany, they get kicked out. And so what happens? Where whatever you touch, or whenever people see you, they kind of just crap all over you. Well, instead of saying that life is really, really awful, you create a story. And the story is this. It's kind of like what Hegel argued, to some extent. There is God. His name is Yahweh. Yahweh is omniscient, omnipresent, and omnipotent. He's all-knowing, all-powerful, and always present. We are not in the mind of God. God makes everything happen. And though we may be limited, and the events we experience may be sad and tragic, you have no idea what waits for you 5 years from now. It is true that you got married. It is true that the marriage is bad. It is true you're divorcing. It is true you're sad and depressed and almost suicidal. But wait, there is hope. Don't give up. All things exist in the hands of God. Be hopeful. At the end of every tunnel that's dark awaits for you light. So that all of a sudden, life, which is nothing but tragedy, becomes a hopeful event. It is true. You get married, you divorce, you're sad and depressed. But one morning, 20 years, when you're 90, you wake up and you say, yes, I am divorced and I'm miserable, but I have wisdom. And you write a book. And it becomes New York bestseller. And then just before you die, you realize something profound. God made you marry the wrong woman. God allowed you to be stupid. God created these set of events so you could get married. God gave you hope and dreams and fantasies in being married. God made your marriage smell really, really bad. You suffered in the marriage, but you suffered in silence. And then she left you for a 10-year-old. Yeah, man, it's America. It's okay. All right, okay. She left you for a 14-year-old. Okay. Glad to make you happy. And then you saw your wife and this 14-year-old have dozens and dozens of kids. Like ducks, you know? And you were jealous and envious and sad and miserable and angry. By the time he's 24, they got 90 kids. He's dead. Jesus Christ, what do you care? It's just a story. And then, the hell was I? It's all your fault. And then life is quite miserable for you. You're 40, you wake up, you're not feeling well, you go to the doctor and he says, oh, you got cancer. What? My wife left me for this 14-year-old. They're happy. I'm miserable. Now you tell me I got cancer. And then you know you're in pain every single day. You throw up, you can't walk, you can't talk, you can't clean yourself. But one day while you're just sitting and you say, maybe I should just write a book about my life experiences. And you do. And then you read the good book, the book of Job, and then you realize something profoundly magical. God made me go through darkness for the past 30 years so I could have enough wisdom inside me. So I could sit while having cancer, having no place to go and can't really go nowhere, to sit and just write my life story down so that it could benefit all those people who marry for the wrong reasons, have children for the wrong reasons, their wife leaves them for the wrong reasons, they get cancer for the wrong reason. Hopefully this book will be a light to all those who are suffering. Sometimes you're positive and you're an optimist because you fail to see the reality of life. That you're just no good, you have no thinking skills, you don't think well, you don't feel well, you don't have any awareness about you, but you know, you live in Hollywood. And you're like Miley Cyrus. You know, everything is extremely sexualized. It's like Costco. Every aisle you go, you have a man in aisle 1 that's better looking than aisle 2. Then you have a man who's better looking in aisle 3 than 1 and 2 combined. But because, you know, you're just a dumbass, you just get married to man number 2, then accidentally you go to aisle 3 and you dump number 2 and you go to number 3. You know, so, and you fail to see that maybe you're just not ready to get married, or maybe you're just too stupid to get married, or maybe you're just, there's too many options out there for you to get married. But nevertheless, you don't have enough awareness about your inner or outer, you know, spaces. So sometimes you are an optimist because you're just an unreflective animal. Then you have the educated pessimists. Beautiful, beautiful people. I'm going to tell you of a pessimist, or as they used to call it, a cynic, who always see the glass as half empty. He was one of my very, very good friends. His name is Diogenes. They called him Diogenes the dog, because he realized that dogs are much more faithful than people are. Dogs can actually hold a promise in ways that human beings can never. If you have a dog, show him some food, he or she will run towards you, but don't give him the food. The dog will eventually go back, show him the food again, he'll run towards you. And what Diogenes argued was that dogs are so faithful and so forgiving that you could play this game with them 1,000 times. They will always sit at your side, never complaining. Human beings don't do that. So his best friend was a dog. Diogenes lived in a bathtub. For those of you who have read the Gospel according to Barnabas, I first read this book in Persian, read some of it in Arabic. There is an English translation, it's not very good, but there's a story that they tell Jesus, why don't you get yourself a nice little home, a nice little house to shelter your body? And he shows them his cloak, his jacket, and he says, when God has given me a jacket, my jacket is my home, why do I need to go somewhere? To house my body, the jacket does enough. And when he was going to comb his hair, someone hands him a comb and he says, why do I need a comb when God has given me fingers that can act like a comb? And Diogenes was very much the same way, that he said that the sky is my home. All I need is to sit in a bathtub. And there's this story, I don't know if it's true, but Alexander the Great, Alexander was Persian. He basically ruled the entire planet. But he had heard such great things about Diogenes that he said, maybe I should go visit him. So Diogenes was sitting naked in the bathtub getting a tan. And Alexander the Great comes and looks at him and says, are you Diogenes? I am Alexander. I am the emperor, I'm the king. He says, I don't really care who you are, you're standing in front of the sun. You need to remove yourself so I can get the sun. The sun is much more attractive, much more usable than you. And so he doesn't talk to Alexander. Alexander just goes home and he says, if I wasn't Alexander the Great, I would have liked to be Diogenes. Now, what makes Diogenes an educated pessimist or cynic? Before I tell you what makes him a cynic, let me tell you another story that's related to Diogenes. Imagine this door opening and this man with beard, half gray, half dark, long hair, half gray, half dark. His name happens to be Ray Diogenes. His back is a little bent. He walks slow. And he has a lantern in his hand, like a flashlight, for those of you who may not know. And so the funny thing about this particular object that he's carrying is that he has lit the lantern. The flashlight is on. And the rest of us look at Ray and say, what are you doing? There is enough light in this room. Turn off the lantern or turn off the flashlight. And he says, no, I have entered a very, very dark space. And what basically he's saying, and this is a story about 2,000-3,000 years ago, that It may be that the sun, the physical sun, is out, but as long as you have no awareness about you, as long as you're not mindful, as long as you're not reflective, as long as you don't really know how to think well, psychologically, emotionally, you're always in darkness. You ask questions, but your questions come from darkness. You think, but your thinking takes place in darkness. I bring this lantern, a lit lantern, as a symbol that we have come to an age where no one can think anymore. And because no one can think, no one can express themselves the right way. There is no justice. There are no human beings. You can see shell of a human being, but when you sit them down and ask them some questions, you realize they have zero substance. Now, even though we have talked about this before, let me just end this part of our conversation about cynicism and optimism in this particular way, to just tell you what it means to be an educated, wise cynic. For those of you who may have some extra time this summer, you should know that I'm teaching a summer class. I'm teaching 3 of them, but one happens to be in person, world religions. It's Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday from 6 to 9. We usually have food and coffee in class. So sign up for the class. It's really fun. And there is no work for the class. You just come and sit. As long as I can see your faces, you'll get a grade. Now,